Good evening, everyone. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider. You're watching Alaska Weather with us on this 20th of September. As always, we encourage you to stay up to date with your local weather information, and you can do that very easily by calling 1-800-472-0391. That's the Alaska Weather Information Line. You can always find this information at weather.gov/Alaska. One click will take you to your nearest weather forecast office, and the forecast information is one more click away. Just click on your part of the map, and you'll get your very latest and pinpoint weather information. You can check on local observations, satellite and radar pictures, and of course watches, warnings, and any advisories. But you'll also find links to the National Tsunami Warning Center, the Alaska Pacific River Forecast Center, and the Alaska Aviation Weather Unit, which will serve your needs whether you're flying or on the water or just curious about the latest rumble that we had somewhere around Alaska. If you can't find what you're looking for, please let me know. I'm happy to serve you any way I possibly can and either help to fix a problem that you find or help you find the information that you're looking for. david.snider@noaa.gov is how you find me anytime. Let's talk about the interior. It is getting colder. There's a lot of moisture moving through, and you've already seen termination dust on a lot of the higher terrain peaks surrounding the region. Tonight and into tomorrow, we expect to see more snow in places like Clear Summit, 1 to 2 inches possible there. Again, all this will be probably above about 2,000 feet, so we're not expecting snow to accumulate in town around Fairbanks. As you look out toward Murphy Dome, don't be surprised to see 1 to 2 feet there. And areas out around Chena Hot Springs and again the higher terrain, probably less than 1 inch at this point. Now, if you're still looking southward toward the Alaska Range, at elevation there, we could be talking about 4 to 6 inches of snow. Again, this is going to be above 2,000 feet, and in some cases it could be even more, a little bit higher up. So if you've got friends or you yourself are planning to go out hunting into some of that higher terrain this weekend, plan on new snow. But again, no snow expected right now around Fairbanks. So there you go. The very latest, of course, anytime this weekend at weather.gov/Fairbanks. As we look out toward southeast, high wind warning is in effect for the capital city and surrounding areas until about 10 o'clock or 7 o'clock tonight, I believe. Gusts up to 60 miles per hour are possible. The entire region around southeast probably talking about gusts on the order of 40 miles an hour or so through the rest of this evening and up around the Tai Inlet and the Tai River especially. We're talking about high water. Flood advisory is posted for the Tai River through tonight, and many rivers, really just about any waterway in southeast is likely coming up. You've had plenty of rain now, and rain will continue to fall through the rest of tonight and into tomorrow. As a result of that, just about every waterway is coming up, but there are a few places that are coming up a little bit more, like Montana Creek, again in southeastern Alaska, not in south central, and the Indian River around Sitka, and that could affect the National Park Service Sawmill Road, putting some water on that, and some other places around the Mendenhall River and the tributaries there are probably coming up. So watch for more information in your area. If you see the water coming up, go ahead and report that. But chances are the National Weather Service in Juneau is monitoring your local waterway, and if flooding does occur, remember the very simple rule: turn around, don't drown. Never drive through a flooded roadway, especially moving water on that roadway. It only takes a few inches, maybe as much as 6, to sweep you and your car away. So be extra careful out there if flooding is occurring in your area. Let's take a look at what's going on with the drought monitor. Remember, we were talking about this yesterday. The good news is that we are getting some very beneficial rain. And more good news is the long-term outlook looks like some of these drought conditions we've been seeing across southeast are certainly easing. We need more rains like this to really peel that back. And the same goes for areas around south central. The drought monitor updated yesterday still has extreme drought across south central, Anchorage, and the northern parts of the Kenai Peninsula and southern parts of southeast. We hope to see some improvement in the coming weeks because of that. But again, this is long-term drought in southeast, so we need more long-term rains like what we're seeing. As I mentioned yesterday, please report your impacts about drought in your area and certainly around Alaska to us at Drought Monitor, or Drought Reporter, I should say, droughtreporter.unl.edu/map. This is a service of the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and they are categorizing and collecting the things that you've noticed because of the dry weather this season. This is not a normal occurrence in southern or southeastern Alaska, and because of that, we don't know what happens when there's drought. We can make some guesses, but your impacts and your reports help scientists understand what is happening in your part of Alaska. Nobody knows that better than you. So, droughtreporter.unl.edu/map, click on Submit a Report, and that information travels to the scientists. So next time, if there is a next time that we have drought, we understand these are the things that we can expect as we go forward during this dry period. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. The visible satellite picture today shows a beautiful storm system across the northern Gulf. Now, if you're not really enjoying the rain or the storm force winds out across the eastern Gulf, maybe it's not so pretty. But from outer space, it is a gorgeous feature of science here, wrapping in that deep Pacific moisture into the north and eastern Gulf. It's right where it should be in some of the rainiest parts of the nation. And there you go. There's the rain that we've been missing across southeast. Periods of moderate to heavy rain continuing under that. South central seeing pretty heavy rain. One thing that we've noticed on the radar today, I wish I had a good example of this, is something we call bright banding. And that's where the radar looks like it's got a lot of heavy rain there. But what it really is snowflakes coated in water and changing the way the radar looks when you look at that online or on a TV map there. And what that tells us is the air upstairs is pretty cold, but the air down low is too warm for it to snow. So that snowflake is melting, and the radar is seeing that as that melting process is occurring and making the radar look like it's really coming down. It is raining, no doubt about it, but it is also snowing up there. So very soon, winter is coming. Southwest, showers will continue as this low pulls into the east. Up north, showers continue to work around some of the higher terrain area. You can already see the clearing taking place on the backside of this. Another wave of low pressure here across the western Bering, and another typhoon, remnants of anyway, working their way toward the Aleutians, and another one in with the western Pacific right now, Tapas, I believe. Low pressure across the eastern Gulf will continue to work slowly across southeast, just grinding away across the northern Gulf as we look through tonight and into tomorrow. The result of that will be some stronger winds across the Alaska Range and probably continued areas of turbulence across southeast. We'll take a look at that in your aviation weather here in just a minute. Low pressure reports down to 976 this afternoon. You can see several cold fronts there, the second of which is dying as this colder air is overtaking the backside of the winds moving in, and that coldest air is kind of being scrubbed into the next leading boundary here, which is the first front you see. Low pressure also pushing warm and wet air into southeast, and of course this whole system again not really moving that much in the next 24 hours, so a lot of rain still possible. There are many locations seeing at least another 1 to 2 inches across the panhandle. A front across the interior here helping to box in showers across the interior and down toward the Alaska Range, rain in parts of southwest and the Alaska Peninsula. Out to the west, not a whole lot of precipitation really expected with that. That's more of a change in the wind and temperature as that moves eastward, and you can see it's already falling apart as we head into tonight. Here's the next weather maker moving into the western chain. That will approach the western end as we look through tonight and into early tomorrow. The main feature will move into western Canada at 987 millibars. The onshore flow continues for southeast. Low pressure just outside of Prince William Sound at 988 millibars, and conditions become a little more showery and the wind starts to let up a little bit more across the central and eastern Gulf. Now for the interior, remember we're talking about that colder air spilling southward. So once again, snow may be possible where you are if you're above 2,000 feet. It does not look like we're going to get accumulating snow around the Fairbanks area, but you may see it trying to snow. Don't be surprised if you see a snowflake or two over town, but as far as sticking on the roads and really calling it winter, probably not. You're probably going to have to go out of town into the higher terrain above 2,000 feet to get that 1 to 2 inches of very wet and sloppy snow accumulation. If you're heading south into the Alaska Range and some of the off-road areas there, you could expect maybe 3 to 6, 4 to 6 inches there. Again, mainly above that 2,000 foot level. For South Central, the winds coming in across Cook Inlet will start to dry things up, and as we head into Saturday, low pressure moves just a little bit further east of Prince William Sound, not by much. 987 millibar low there. Another piece of that is heading further and further east toward Great Slave Lake. Low pressure working across southeast, still dragging in that onshore flow. Rain will continue in southeast into Saturday. Across the Brooks Range, periods of snow and fog expected. At lower terrain, that's still going to mix up with rain and snow as we head through your Saturday. Low pressure down the west coast at 993 millibars keeps that onshore flow coming into parts of southwest and Norton Sound. Showery type weather there, maybe in a few of the hills, a chance for a few rain or snowflakes to mix in. And along the Alaska Range, once again, areas of snow showers will continue. Down low, it's all rain, so no significant concerns for road weather or any traveling or anything where anybody lives around most of South Central. For Southwest, a 997 millibar low moves in again. This one still has some taps to that tropical moisture. Periods of rain will be possible with southerly winds working through the eastern chain as it runs into a ridge of high pressure. Some of that moisture may get trapped underneath, and it's more likely that we'll see some fog there from the Shumagon Islands east toward Kodiak in patchy locations there for your Saturday. Looking ahead into Sunday, low pressures reforming, strengthening, deepening down to 974 millibars there right around the Shumagon. So again, the winds coming up around Bristol Bay. We're going to have a tap into that deep moisture across the Gulf. And look, we're setting the stage for another opportunity for rain, not only for southeast, but once again for south central. As this is working through southwest Kodiak Island, the winds and rain come up pretty sharply on Sunday. And showers will move out of Prince William Sound and then right back in by Sunday night. It looks like another round of rain will be moving in. Up to the north of this, we still have low pressure sitting across the Yukon Delta and Norton Sound right off of Nome, a 990 millibar low there. Out to the west, not quite cold enough for snow showers yet. We're going to call those rain showers across the Bering and all the way into parts of the Chukchi. You're looking for showers there into Kotzebue Sound, maybe a steadier rainfall for your Sunday. East of that, across the Arctic coast, it's rain and snow, and another push of cooler air trying to work its way into western Canada. Let's take a look at your temperatures quickly tonight. 40s and 50s for southeast, south central. Looking at lows in the upper 30s and lower 40s. Some places on the east side of town may experience their first freeze there. Out across the Koyukuk Valley, parts of southwest of McGrath and the North Slope, temperatures may be very close to freezing as well, and likely below in some parts, especially the Koyukuk, Kobuk, around 35 in Nome, 41 for Makoriak, 36 in Utqiagvik, and let's say 45 in Sandpoint. For southeast tomorrow, mid to upper 50s, south central 40s and 50s, 55 in Kodiak, about 40 in Fairbanks, 36 in Healy, 30 for AKwx Pass, 37 in Kaktovik. Kivalina, you're looking at about 43 degrees. McGrath, 45, and King Salmon and Dillingham, right about 50 in the afternoon on Saturday.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
And on to your aviation forecast now. For Saturday morning, we expect widespread IFR across the Beaufort Seacoast, the central and the eastern interior, all the way down into the Copper River Valley. For many parts of southeast, watch for IFR to continue, and the conditions will still be pretty choppy there. We'll take a look at turbulence in just a minute. Marginal conditions will follow that out into the Gulf. Watch for improving conditions across Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, up into the Susitna Valley. But west of that, and especially west of the Alaska Range and north into Kotzebue and Norton Sound, we do expect to see widespread MVFR. You will find some breaks around Bristol Bay and also across the Yukon Delta, Kodiak Island included. And just east of the Pribilofs, IFR picks up again ahead of the next storm. As we get into your afternoon on Saturday, watch for convection here around the Gulf of Alaska. IFR is going to continue for many parts of northern and southern southeast. You might see some marginal breaks there around Sitka and east toward Petersburg. To the west, a broad area of VFR is expected to develop around the Kenai Peninsula to Cook Inlet, over the Alaska Range, all the way up through Isabel, and probably Windy Pass and westward Rainy, Lake Clark, and Merrill. So watch for a lot of improvement there. But it will be hit and miss as you get into west and southwestern Alaska. East of McGrath, you'll probably start to run into some patchy areas of MVFR. Norton Sound, especially down the coast, you'll likely be looking into IFR developing there, but most of the southwestern capes will hold at marginal conditions, with IFR holding for the North Slope and Anaktuvik and Adigan Pass as we go. That will lift northward just a little bit on Sunday morning, but it does look like it will impact your passes there for the Brooks Range. For many areas along the Yukon Valley, VFR should develop throughout the day, and it will be a colder start for sure. Watch for freezing levels to drop around the Kenai Peninsula, and places like Anchorage, especially on the east side, could see your first freeze. Southeast, you're looking at IFR or VFR conditions for the outer coast, with marginal conditions across some of the higher terrain, including Juneau up toward Haines and Skagway, and Gustavus looking up toward Yakutat. Marginal weather there to start, and then marginal conditions for most of the southern Bering Sea and the southwestern coast. By the afternoon, that fills in once again. Marginal up and down the west coast. IFR wrapping around low pressure that's working into the western Gulf, with convection noted there, and IFR around Ketchikan and Hyder. North and west of that, expect marginal conditions, and more of that will develop into Prince William Sound and parts of the Cook Inlet region as we get into the afternoon. Here's your pass conditions for tomorrow, Saturday. IFR for Anaktuvik and Adigan Pass as we go. Lake Clark and Merrill Pass start at marginal and then clear up. It should be a much nicer day by the end of the day. Rainy Pass should see similar conditions there, heading for VFR throughout your Saturday. Windy Pass also expected to see improvement throughout your day. Isabel Pass starts at IFR and sees rapid improvement throughout the afternoon. And Metastapass looking for an IFR start and maybe a marginal finish. It's going to be right there on the line about how much improvement actually makes it east into the eastern Alaska range. Tenita Pass, IFR conditions there to start, but it looks like we will see improvement throughout the day, and Portage Pass could make it all the way to VFR there. There will still be a marginal area inside of Prince William Sound. Chilkoot and White Pass does not look like it'll see a whole lot of improvement throughout your day. Surface freezing line right now still holding across the Kobuk and Noatak valleys into Norton Sound and the Seward Peninsula. To the west of that, you can see 2 to 4, even 6,000 foot lines there right in the vicinity of the Aleutians. A lot of that colder air is dropping southward, but generally is north and west of the Alaska range at this point. To the east, substantial warmth levels over southeastern Alaska holding at 8 to 10,000 feet. Levels for the eastern interior between about 4 and 6 at this point. So icing potential is there as that colder air is coming down in altitude. The moisture hasn't left yet, so we still have levels around 4 to about 8,000 feet where you could start to run into some isolated moderate, about 5 to maybe 6 here across the west coast and the Aleutians, and 8,000 feet across southern parts of southeast. Again, watch out for convection across the Gulf. The jet stream right now has low pressure across the Chukchi Sea, but the main driver of our weather right now is coming out of the North Pacific, and another typhoon is working its way through the West Pacific at this point, so we are still looking at a very active fall storm season. At 9,000 feet, low pressure across Prince William Sound and across the West Coast, guiding a lot of that very wet and turbulent weather out across southeast. Light and kind of variable flow across the interior, but the general pattern is from west to southwest across the inside. And as we get to 3,000 feet, you can see several waves of low pressure around the region. Choppy conditions across southwest, low pressure across the central chain, and that broad sweeping west and southwesterly flow moving very active weather into southeast. Wind speeds in the interior again holding around 10 to 15, all rotating around those smaller areas of low pressure for your Saturday. Turbulence then tomorrow, it looks like we will still have the opportunity for isolated severe across some parts of the central panhandle below 8,000 feet. Widespread considerable moderate there, and for areas west of the Alaska Range into Bristol Bay and Kodiak Island.
The beluga whale, also known as the white whale, lives in large groups and are unusual among whales. They have no dorsal fin, large bulbous heads, and they can actually swim backwards. To feed, they produce sound to find and hunt fish and invertebrates, and they use sound to communicate.
They're also known as the canaries of the sea because they make such a diversity of noises. They make chirps and whistles and gurgles and trumpeting sounds. They just make all kinds of sounds.
In the U.S., beluga whales live in the cold waters of Alaska, and there are 5 separate populations. Of those 5, the Cook Inlet population is the smallest, and has declined by about 75%. Subsistence hunting may have contributed to this initial population drop, but this practice was regulated starting in 1999, with the last hunt in 2005. Still, the beluga population here has yet to recover.
We listed Cook Inlet beluga whales as an endangered species under the Endangered Species Act in 2008, and we had hoped that the population would start recovering, but we are still seeing a continued decline. And these beluga whales are only found in Cook Inlet, and so if they go extinct, we don't think any other belugas will come back and populate this area.
These whales spend most of their summer near Anchorage, Alaska's largest city, where threats to belugas are on the rise as the city grows. These may include diminishing food, habitat loss or destruction, pollution, toxins, and human-caused noise which hampers their ability to feed and communicate. Researchers are trying to understand which of these threats may be impacting them most, but Cook Inlet is a tough place to work.
It's really hostile for research. We have the strong tides, which makes it challenging for human safety, and we can't see through the water. It is very muddy, so we're pretty much limited to the part of the animal that breaks the surface of the water. And as a result, we have limited information about the specific population dynamics of Cook Inlet beluga whales.
Up until recently, information has mainly come from annual aerial surveys from aircraft, and boat or shore-based photo identification surveys that use unique markings to tell animals apart. Scientists also use passive acoustics to listen for belugas, but none of these methods can detect much information about their health,
So it's really been a game changer with the whole species in the spotlight designation. We've gotten more resources within our agency.
For instance, we're able to use a drone to collect some aerial imagery of belugas in the wild, and we're hoping to learn some information about the age classes, information about the health status.
And probably the most important bit of information that we'll get out of that is we'll be able to identify the new calves. And we're hoping if we keep doing this every year, we'll be able to get an estimate of calf production every year that will tell us something about how well the population's doing.
We are also expanding upon our biopsy studies, hopefully to give us some information about sex, the individual's reproductive status, some genetic information, some contaminant loads.
Public and private partners are contributing as well. Some are looking at toxin levels in the whale's prey, while others are analyzing beluga teeth to learn about their age and past diet. Others monitor water quality and how belugas react to boats, and more check to see if their behavior changes with increased background noise. All of these findings will go toward developing effective recovery strategies for this population.
As for what you can do, if you're out boating, give belugas space. Don't drive right up next to them. Stay about 100 yards away. If you're flying over them, just remember that you're putting noise into the water as well, and so stay at least 1,500 feet above them. Report a stranded beluga whale as soon as possible, and that's if they're dead stranded or live stranded. The amount of information that we can learn from these animals by responding to a stranding is monumental, and it will help our efforts to recover them.
Together we can help beluga whales thrive in the dynamic waters of Cook Inlet. With continued research and good stewardship, we hope to see this population grow in the years to come.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
And back with a look at your sea ice update there. No new ice is forming across our region right now or close to Alaska waters, but well to the north. We do have some reports from the satellite sensors that are showing us that new ice is forming within the marginal ice zone and in the ice pack itself. So things are cooling down. One thing that's going to prevent a very widespread freeze quickly across areas closer to Alaska right now is just the wind. The wind is moving a little bit too much, and as sea surface temperatures cool off and the wind lets up a little bit later in the season, we'll probably see that change very quickly, obviously. But for right now, nothing new to report there as of this September 20th. For the very latest information on your sea ice and the outlook for the season, head to weather.gov/Anchorage/ice. On to southeast now. Winds are going to be a little gusty as we go into the Lynn Canal. Gusts up to 35 knots there, 20 knots sustained with 4-foot seas, 4 to 5-foot seas expected through the rest of the inside passage with 15 to 20 knot winds coming in from the south. Across the outer coast, a west and southwesterly flow should be expected through your Saturday. 15 knot winds in most places, up to 12-foot seas. Outside of the Dixon entrance on Saturday should diminish a little bit there, maybe as much as 10 to 12 feet as we continue into Sunday. Outside of Sitka, all the way up into the northern Gulf, 20 knot winds there with 10 to 11-foot seas coming into low pressure, still hovering outside of Prince William Sound. And southeasterlies expected to continue up the inside passage, more of a southerly flow for the Lynn Canal, 15 knots and 3-foot seas as you go into Sunday. For Prince William Sound, northwesterlies being drawn into low pressure just outside of the Sound, 20 knots with 10-foot seas outside, all the way out toward the Barren Islands, where you see 40 to 45 knot winds, still very strong coming through that gap there. 13-foot seas expected. On the northern part of Cook Inlet, 10 knots and 2-foot seas also coming in from the northwest on Saturday. Winds diminish in all areas as we go through your Sunday. An easterly flow inside of Prince William Sound, small seas as well. 4 to 6-foot seas across Cook Inlet with some of the higher seas and winds, of course, across the Barrens. Southerlies flowing into the northern Gulf there at 15 to 20 knots, 8 to maybe 6-foot seas as you head out to the west there on Sunday. For Bristol Bay, southwesterlies 25 knots and 5-foot seas. Westerlies coming across the Alaska Peninsula, 20 knots with a 6 to 7-foot sea in the region. And west and northwesterlies a little bit stronger around Kodiak Island for your Saturday, 11 to 12-foot seas there. Low pressure, of course, just to your north and east. And as we get into Sunday, we start to see this kind of responding to that stronger area of low pressure that's coming up the Aleutian chain there. So a new low pressure system taking over. Easterly flow switches around for Kodiak Island, up to 45 knot winds there north of Cold Bay, and really pushing the higher winds and seas closer to the eastern chain, more so than the Alaska Peninsula. As this low travels eastward, you'll get into some of that wind as you move into Monday. In the meantime, 11 to 14-foot seas for the Bering and 10 to 13-foot seas there for the Pacific waters. Shelikof Strait looking at 35 knots and 9-foot seas on Sunday. For the Aleutians, not so bad there for Saturday. Central and eastern parts of the chain looking at 15 to 20 knot winds and 5 to 6 foot seas generally in the region. With the northeasterly flow, though, strengthening out here in the west, 6 foot seas and 20 to 30 knot winds from the north and east. Watch what happens as we get into Sunday. That low pressure system really cranks up with storm force winds south of the eastern chain. You're looking at 40 to 50 knot winds here, 16 to 18 foot seas on the south side, 14 to 18 foot seas on the north side in the Bering, and north and westerly winds being drawn in there. Much less wind though, 15 to 30 knots, and stronger flows in from the north should produce some higher seas. You're seeing those in the anywhere from about 17 to maybe 23 foot seas there offshore, so watch for that to come up sharply on Sunday. For the west coast, northerlies and a little bit of a west and southwesterly flow coming into the Kuskokwim Delta, 30 to 35 knot winds with 10 to 11 foot seas, and southerlies for Norton Sound, 20 knots and 3 foot seas there on Saturday. Winds diminish up in the north and west for Sunday. We still have a stronger flow for St. Paul and St. George outside of the Kuskokwim Delta, 9 to 11 foot seas on that 30 to 35 knot wind. For the Beaufort, easterlies at 20 knots, 5 foot seas there in the open waters, of course, and easterlies blowing off the Chukchi 10 to 15, and onshore flow coming into Kotzebue at 15 knots on Saturday. For Sunday, winds diminish a little bit in the Chukchi and easterly offshore flow around Kivalina and Kotzebue, 20 knots with a 4 foot sea, and east and southeasterlies for the Beaufort. The winds settle down, but the seas are still choppy at 4 to 5 feet. Recapping tonight's weather, periods of heavy rain will continue around southeastern Alaska, and because of that, many of the rivers and streams are coming up. Flood advisories have been posted for a few locations. Some of those around the Mendenhall River as well could start to come up, so keep watch for that. More information at weather.gov/Juneau. Snow levels are coming down in the interior. At or above 2,000 feet, you may see 1 to 2 inches of snow for the Alaska range. You could see on the order of 4 to 6. So plan for some snow in the region, but not for Fairbanks. Rain continues around south central and southeast with a new storm in the chain by this weekend.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.